In this video, we're going to go over how to defend against one base Swift Shocker Rush. My opponent immediately techs in this game into Swift Shockers before expanding or doing anything else. I had already taken my expansion because that's typically what I do at the very start of a game. So I've got to figure out how to defend this. My opponent also has wasps that I have to worry about. I think maybe the most important thing to note about any time your opponent is doing some sort of tech rush like this is that you're going to need some tech of your own to defend it. You're not going to be able to defend it with tier 1 units. Very likely whatever choice they're picking something that's going to crush your tier 1 units, like the Swift Shocker. So yeah, you need to get your own tech to defend it. So only spend 600 matter, right? Because after your expansion, you're going to get 1,000 matter and 400 energy, so you can spend 600 of it on initial units. And then as soon as you have 400, you'll need to immediately get some tech of your own, whatever you think is appropriate to defend against it. In this case, I grab my king crabs because that's going to help me against the wasps, and it might do okay against the shockers. They could maybe kite me a bit, but it is a splash unit, and the king crabs are pretty durable, so they can probably take a good amount of shots from that. As well as the mortar, actually, in this game. So yeah, so you do want to tech as fast as possible. So here's the opponent comes in and very, very quickly destroying all my workers at my expansion. That's kind of okay, right? Because we're up the base against him. He'd have to kill more than just that to get a true lead. Meanwhile, I'm just waiting for my tech to come online, which is you just got to kind of wait it out, and then make sure you save. You can continue to buy tier 1 units while you're waiting, but just make sure that your matter and your energy remain equal. Don't overspend your matter, so that as soon as your tech comes online, you can kind of max out and buy as many tier 2 units as you possibly can. So I pick up a lot of king crabs and a mortar here to try to defend. I actually do a poor job of this. I leave the mortar in a pretty bad spot, and my opponent is really looking to kind of abuse any little edge he can get. So he does scoot in here and then keeps taking additional pot shots at my expansion. I keep trying to chase him out, and then I had this dumb idea to wrap all the way around the terrain. You'll see on the mini-map here in a bit, and try to flank him, and that just really didn't pan out because it kind of just... I basically just gave up the expansion to him at that point, which is a really dumb move. From there, my opponent expands, so that's a good play on my opponent if you're looking to be the aggressor and do some sort of one base tech play. You don't necessarily always have to win outright with it. If you do a good amount of damage like this, you can expand behind it and kind of try to just play out the game from there. So he does take out that base. He will take a second. Yeah, I tried this flank move. It was just silly and just not that worth it. I got like 2 extra shockers or Swift Shockers out of that. I believe, yeah, I teched tier 3 actually very quickly too, because upon seeing the rush coming out and thinking about what the Swift Shocker would be capable of and the high speed that they have, I was already thinking like, okay, he might just be able to kite my melee units forever, so I better get some sort of range unit to back it up. So I did tech tier 3 for the assault bot, pooled a lot of my matter so that I could get a whole bunch of them, and then I march across the map like this. So yeah, so this is gonna do a good amount of damage. My opponent is teching Falcons, which will be able to fight against my army pretty well since I don't have any anti-air at this point. But fortunately, I'm able to do enough economic damage to his base, and then basically back off and counter the Falcons with Hornets at that point to win. So yeah, again, the most important points are just that if you see the one base tech and you've already expanded, just especially making sure that you pick some sort of tech that you can fight back with, and then start that tech as soon as humanly possible, right? Make sure that you have 400 at the right time, and then just defending as best you can against their rush. Their rush will come knocking on your door before your tech gets online. You're going to be at a disadvantage with your tier 1 units. but you just have to figure out a way to fight as best you can and at least hopefully delay him or stop him from killing your expansion as best as possible. And even if he does take it out, it doesn't mean the game's over. Your tech choice might counter his tech choice. You still might be able to counter attack like in this game, and win in those cases. Yeah, and I did have the mortar, so I did use the mortar a bit in this game. I do use the mortar in the next game to defend a little bit. I don't think the mortar was really entirely necessary. I actually have another video that I'll upload later versus a one-base stinger play that my opponent does, which I think is actually a bit scarier than the shocker, because the stinger, you know, it's being a non-splash unit. It does better DPS on single targets, and it's even better against King Crabs. Can arguably win with good micro. And in that game, I didn't have mortars. I did just build King Crabs for kind of the initial defense on that game as well. But yeah, we'll check out that one later. Yeah, so in game 2, it's the same opponent actually. I think these games were back to back, and yeah, they're going the Swift Shocker again. I'm gonna tech for, you know, King Crabs again. When he arrives at my base, I'm gonna just try to engage with my Scorpions a little bit. Maybe not engage too much. You know, I do a little bit of back and forth because I know those Swift Shockers will kill my Scorpions really fast. I'm basically just, he's kind of sort of guaranteed to kill a lot of my workers at the expansion, but I'm just trying to prevent him from taking the base itself. And then, yeah, and then soon after the push, my opponent does take a second base. Again, that's just a decent follow-up. You don't have to, as a one-base player, you don't have to completely commit to winning right then and there. You just try to do as much damage as you can and expand. And in this game, I also tech assault bots very quickly, kind of as like my long-term game plan, basically. I also take a third base, and then meanwhile, my opponent just tried a different tech choice. He did the Falcons game 1, and then just tried the Behemoth this game, which just didn't pan out because the assault bot pretty much counters the Behemoth. So my tier 3 just countered his tier 3. This is kind of the way it went. There's kind of just in the game in general too. There's definitely some rock paper scissors going on between the different styles of units. If I were to kind of break down that example in tier 3, the assault bot is going to beat the Behemoth, and it's just because the assault bots are smaller, high DPS. They pack together tighter, so a lot more of them are going to participate in the fight and target fire the Behemoths. Meanwhile, you make a whole lot of Behemoths. It's just a huge unit. They're going to get in each other's way. Not as many of them can fire all at once. They're also single target, so that's kind of why that goes that way. And then the Behemoth would be good against the heavy ballista, for example, right? Because the heavy ballista would be a splash unit, so that'd be good against tightly packed units, but not so good against the Behemoth. That's where the Behemoth size actually becomes an advantage in that case. And then yeah, the heavy ballista beats assault bot. So assault bot beats Behemoth, Behemoth beats ballista, ballista beats assault bot. So just so you kind of get that too. Yeah, so that's basically it. Yeah, if you ever up against one base tech play, yeah, don't be too scared. Just kind of try to think through what you're gonna tech and how you're gonna defend it, and also just be thinking about the long-term game plan too. I think the first few times I ever ran into one base tech plays, yeah, I'd be so overly focused on just defending that initial push that maybe I just wasn't thinking long term, and my opponent did take that second base, and then they ended up beating me on economy down the road. So just don't lose sight of that longer game too. I think both of these replays actually ended up being over 5 minutes, so they ended up being decently long games, even though it started with a rush. So yeah, just another thing to keep in mind there. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So enjoy the rest of the game, and catch you in the next one. Bye.
Sauce fuel you clicked me. Orders moving. KCX. Cannon fire.
Advanced Foundry ready.
Orders? Fresh crabs!
Okay.
Kill zone? Relocation sequence. Forever without... Union mortars, salute.
Units in combat.
Need deployment location. It's gonna be close. Pick a direction.
Resource base warmed up and working.
Up and away. Is it far? Joyce, move. Deploy here. Coming or going?
Orders? Let's go.
You clicked me?
What do you need? On my way.
Enemy is building a resource base.
Identified.
New perimeter.
You got it.
Units reporting damage.
Pick a direction.
Resource base warmed up and working.